episode. Welcome to episode 17 of Choose to Love podcast with my lovely co-host, Diana. All right, today's episode we're going to talk a lot about what? Oh, it's okay. I got a couple of things.
Okay.
We were talking before, and I told her, I was like, let's just record. Let's just do this live instead of end up having a conversation and saying we should have recorded. But essentially, it's along the topic. Yeah, I got a few verses here of what were we talking about? We were talking about the table, just like growth
Growth,
and what.
moving, right? Moving so that you can grow in what God has for you.
Yeah, don't move the chair though.
It's
It's
hard.
a habit. We want to encourage anybody who's gonna listen today, and eventually our kids when they listen one day, that if we're intentional with our growth in our lives, with the little things that we do every day, every week, every month, every year consistently, you'll see growth. And that growth happens with being intentional with what we do.
Yeah.
You were saying that you've seen a change in my faith, in my walk with being a part of this men's group that I'm a part of, Monday nights. And that's a year deep of being consistently going. Didn't necessarily even want to go today because I was tired because didn't get good sleep last night and just had a long day. But it's a part of my schedule. It's a part of my routine.
It's a commitment, right?
It's a
Commitment you
commitment
made.
not only to myself, but to the people who are in my life, because if I'm better, my relationships are better. I pour into people. I can't pour into people if I'm not being poured into myself. And then intentionally being on this journey of wanting to, like for me, I'm on a journey of wanting to not wanting. I've started a new business, coaching, consulting, but I'm putting myself out there with public speaking and taking classes and actually getting in front of people to be able to practice the art of communication. Because I don't have the book here. It's in my room, in our room. Everybody communicates, but few connect. Because if you do not, everything lies and starts and ends with communication. If we can't communicate what it is we are thinking in a way that the person who is hearing receives it, then it's hard for us to get where we want to in life. We're
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuck
Mm-hmm.
because it's like a baby trying to tell someone outside of their mother what it is they're looking for, but the person doesn't understand. So when we can communicate, we're able to get better. And when I was before we got together, I was thinking about some verses that came to mind. And when we're intentional about like this journey of growing spiritually and wanting to grow in our lives like we are right now, I thought about James 2. And this is from the Message translation. Verse 2, James 2:26. The very moment you separate body from spirit, you end up with a corpse. Separate faith and works, and you get the same thing, a corpse. So essentially, it's saying we can have the faith to want to change, but faith alone doesn't do it. We have to be willing to put in the steps, the work ourselves in faith to be able to then have change come about.
Right.
And that comes with the unsexy word advice of consistency and time. But when we do those two things married together, those two things allow us to be able to have our faith be manifested into our daily life and
Mm-hmm.
have better relationships with being able to communicate with each other, being able to communicate with the kids, being able to just live a life that's richer than what we started with, because we're actually putting in the work behind having the faith of believing that God wants us to have a more abundant life. As excited as I am to go to heaven one day, I still want to live my earthly experience with abundance. I want to be able to have fruit multiplied in all seasons of my life, to have everything that I do turn to gold, not because I want to brag and be of this world when it comes to like materialistic things, but I want to be able to have the favor from God be on us in our marriage, in our life, in our finances, in our experiences, in our relationships. And that happens with doing the work ourselves.
Mhm.
And then also, um, for anybody who's listening, who wants to start something new related to like faith, starting a podcast, starting a YouTube channel, starting a small group, starting a blog, whatever it may be, start it, because you don't know the voice that you have for the people that need to hear it.
Mhm.
And I thought of Matthew 38, where Jesus is talking to his disciples. And this is the Message translation again. It's a little bit longer because like the other version is just like one sentence.
Yeah.
The Message just breaks it into a little bit more. Little gives you a little bit more visual. Then
It helps us relate. That was the whole purpose. The author. Oh,
yeah, that's like
it's because I went like this. That was the whole purpose. The author wanted a Bible that was easier
modern day.
for his people, his congregation to relate to.
Mm. So it says this. Then Jesus made a circuit of all of the towns and villages. He taught in their meeting places, reported kingdom news, and healed their diseased bodies, healed their bruised and hurt lives. When he looked out to the crowds, his heart broke. So confused and aimless they were, like sheep with no shepherd. What a huge harvest, he said to his disciples. How few workers, on your knees and pray for the harvest hands. Essentially saying, look at all the people out there. God's heart was broken in that instance where he sees all the people, but yet all those people don't have a shepherd to gather them together to hear the good news, to be able to hear what God wants to do in their life, who may never hear what God wants to do, who may never even hear of God, who may never hear of Jesus, because people unwilling to do the work. The
Mm.
work that you do with a small channel, with a small blog, with a small group is your part that you're doing to be able to be a shepherd and share the good news to those that need to hear it. You don't need to be their shepherd forever, but you may be their shepherd for a season, and that is sufficient enough for you to do the work that God needs all of us to do, regardless of what journey, regardless of where you are along the journey. You don't need to be in front of a stadium speaking to 10,000 people, because you may not be there yet. All you need to do is be able to speak on what God has done in your life to that point, and speak to the people who are coming behind you, right? Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that still you can't speak life into the people who are 10 years ahead of you. And I've seen it happen where it's like people who are like, oh man, I have little faith, blah, blah, blah. And they bring up a question that happens up in the men's Bible study. And all of a sudden that one question that they have facilitates the whole conversation.
Mm.
Partially because we want to be able to like pour into that person, but their faith at their journey is so contagious that it feeds life into the people who've been walking for so long, and it gives a new spark and a new excitement to the word, because we're not looking at it anymore from our perspective, but the perspective of how somebody else sees it.
Mhm.
And then we're able to go into them and say like, no, 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 maybe you're looking at it all wrong. Look at it with this lens. All of a sudden it makes a little bit different, a different has a different effect on how they look at how they view it. So we can't put pressure on ourselves for not knowing enough. God can use what you're doing for the people that he needs in that season of their life to be shepherd. That's all you need to do. Be obedient to the word and let God have the outcome. Obedient, we're obedient. God is responsible for the outcome. Our job is obedience.
Yeah.
Yep, turn.
Um, I also like that he points out like how few workers on your knees and pray for harvest hand. We're often praying for what we want, but we're not often praying for God to guide us on how to get there. Because whatever we want, there is a journey you have to take. Nothing is just gonna magically come to you, right? Because we build character, we grow through the process. And for you to be able to take care, like for you to value what you get at the end, what you have, you need to have all those things you've learned through the way to take care of it. Because it's like if you were to grow a garden, if you were, when you buy vegetables, for example, or whatever it is at the grocery store or whatever, you don't think about how hard the farmers worked to harvest, to plant, to harvest, to take care, to think about the water, um, the effects of like dry seasons, all those things that it takes. So you're not like, oh, it went bad. Let me just throw it out.
Mhm.
But I think when you grow something, you're like right away, you're like, oh, I'm going to make this and we're going to enjoy it. We're just going to, right away we make a salad or we make a vegetable dish because we're so proud and, and it took a while for it to grow. It took a while for it to grow. And I think it also tastes a lot better when
Yeah.
you grow it. So I think we can look at it the same way, right? We so often pray, oh, God, provide, provide, provide. Okay, but like, God, show me what I need to do so that you can provide. Because what do I need to change in my life that's not allowing me to get from point A to B?
And that's where the James 2 comes into play. Because we can't just expect for him to just give us the keys to a kingdom and expect to run it. What if the keys to a building to be able to lead a church was the place that he wanted to take you to? But he needed you to start with speaking to two people.
Mm-hmm.
Be, be obedient and be a good steward of the two and see how he gets you along the journey to build the character, the discipline, the heart to be able to take care of the sheep at 1,000 because you took care of two well.
Yeah, I mean, that's with everything in life, not just becoming a pastor or leading a church. Any business, right, that you have, you're going to have to communicate with people for you to run a good business
Yeah,
because you need people in your life. You need people to have balance because
yeah,
if you decide you're going to be doing all the things, you're going to struggle because eventually it will catch up. So, to be a good communicator also it's every single business that you do, every single thing that you do, every single career, job, whatever it is, you're going to need
mm,
communication because you need to communicate well with people so that you can, one, that people can enjoy working with you and therefore have people that last, and two, because you need to communicate well so that people get things done how you would like them to get it done.
yeah.
um yeah, so think it applies to just life in general.
But so often, myself included, we want to be able to have the keys
Yeah.
to like a I mean, I just think about it, if someone had handed me the keys to loyalty at 9 years,
Mm,
day 1, I said, "Here you go. It's ready for you." That thing would have crashed and burned so quickly
mm,
because I just wouldn't have been ready.
mm.
The 9 years up to the point where I sold the business built my character to be able to slowly get to the point of being an owner of a business at 9 years.
Yeah. And it was tough.
What?
The journey that
Oh,
from
for
to the
sure.
9 years, like
But the journey
it
really, the
was,
journey is 100% more important than the destination.
yeah. But that's, we don't realize that. And it's really hard to realize it.
Well, because when you're going through it, you don't want to go through it.
No, of
Especially
course
because
not.
if you're going through a valley, no one wants to
You
go through the
don't.
valley, and
Mm-mm.
the highs seem to last so short
And
before another valley comes that you're like, oh my goodness,
and it
this
feels
is a
like
roller
it.
coaster ride of emotions that I'm not even sure I want to be a part of. But when you're able to look back, hindsight 2020, and say, wow, what I learned,
But
the
it
person
feels
I am
like you're
today.
going through it by yourself. Nobody else goes through that, just you.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. It's hard. It's hard. It's, again, it's, I know. It's
Whether we we should switch chairs. Maybe I should sit there.
no, you're gonna do the same
I
thing.
probably will. It's when it's available. It's what you do. But what do you think about people who are maybe afraid to start something, or maybe like they have a desire to like share the good news. They don't know how, or they're afraid to, or they don't feel like they know enough. What do you say to people like that? That's encouraging to be able to push them to that level of like, okay, I don't know everything. That's okay.
Well, I think like whatever you do, what's your reason to do it? And I think that's the encouragement, because if you're doing something to get recognition,
Mm,
or yeah, basically to get, especially like doing stuff like this, if you're doing it for recognition, it's not gonna happen, because your ego is gonna get hit really quick, because people are mean. People become really nasty behind, you know, their phone. So it's gonna like be really tough to be criticized and to be called names. But it's the you hold on. I think you hold on to the reason why, right? Or for us, starting this was more so we can have a video diary for our kids, so that we can just have the time together. I mean, we did this anyway without the cameras. It
yeah.
was more so because we wanted record for our kids. But also, I mean, if it helped anybody out there, that was, it's a plus. Um, but for me personally, it, because I know you were trying to get me on this for a while, and I was like, nope, I don't like it. But it was more so I felt like I needed to step out of my comfort zone, to step out into something that was really like unexpected for myself. You know, speaking isn't something that I'm comfortable like sharing with everybody. I'm very reserved until I know you
Mm,
enough that I feel comfortable being open with you. And so obviously I know that, yeah, I'm talking to you, but I know that this is gonna get posted and anyone can watch. And
yeah.
so
I mean, we have.
it was hard, because I mean, I'm like, oh, you know, I gotta be careful what I say, especially if you go back and watch videos in the beginning. I was much more careful, reserved, and like intentional. Not intentional. I was just very careful about what I was saying. Not that I'm not careful, but I'm more comfortable.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and I'm not really sure like what clicked that was like, I think it was just,
Well, I think God was stirring on your heart.
yeah.
You You put it into prayer and petition
Yeah.
to see what God wanted you to do.
But what I was sharing with you today is that I think because I did this, it allowed me to be more comfortable speaking to others in my group, because this is not something I would do. I was not comfortable
Mm.
sharing in group settings. And from day one, I was sharing.
But share,
That is not what I normally did.
but share also what you think has happened with like accountability for us doing this.
What do you
Because
mean?
you were mentioning that us doing this also holds you at a position at a point of accountability for wanting to be in the word yourself,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
like you don't want to be coming here and not spending time with God.
Yeah. Trying to grow spiritually. Um, and that's also through, the group and in personal. See you today. In personal
No,
time. That was
that was
you.
Bell.
Oh, that was you. Heard you. Yeah, definitely. That holds me accountable on that part too.
I think my piece of advice for anybody who's wanting to start is, first of all, we have a channel that has less than 1,000 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
So on the scale of virality, we ain't it.
Mm-hmm.
But we have seen the impact on, a handful of people that have reached out to us.
Yeah, and
And I'm
that
sure
to
that
me
there's
is
people
that already means a lot.
but there's also, I'm sure, people that haven't said anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because sometimes people wait for other people to comment before they even share something because they're afraid to even comment
Yeah.
behind a screen. But even with our channel being as small as it has still gotten 150,000 views. Don't
150,000.
150,000
On
views
what?
on YouTube.
No, but oh, like overall.
Yeah, overall,
Oh,
all the
okay. I
videos.
thought you meant like
Like
a
obviously
specific.
some no, some are just me. Most of them are us or some of the other podcasts that I've done. But I say all that to say, who knows out of the 150,000 people that I've seen what God can do with the snippet that they listen to, with the
Mm-hmm.
piece that they watch, and what it is we're talking about has the ability to be transformative in somebody's life.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that my biggest um, growth opportunities have all happened on the other side of yes.
Yeah.
Just saying yes. I'm scared, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to, but
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's out of my comfort zone and I'm shy or I don't, whatever it is, yes. Because when that yes happens, there's something that happens within you where all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I got to get this prepared. I got to try to bring my best. I got to be consistent. I got to be reliable. I got to be not just talking to talk. Because another thing about communication is, and this is something that I've been learning, is I don't care that much anymore about what I need to say.
Yeah.
Because if I'm just up there, if I'm just on here saying what I want to hear or I want to say for essentially me to hear
Mm-hmm.
or for what I think other people want to hear, I'm not connecting. But if I share at a point of wanting to connect and give value to the person listening, that's where transformation happens or that's where connection happens. Because at that point, the other person says, okay, he's not just saying something to say something. Like there's substance here that I need. And he's connecting with me on a point that is that is real. It's not fake.
Right.
So
Um,
so the greatest growth in anyone's life happens on that other side of yes. So
but I think too is, I'm
I was just
sorry,
gonna say, so say yes. Say yes to starting and just take one step at a time. Start with what you got. Start with
but make it something that's manageable. Like, don't
Don't
over
overwhelm.
perfect things and do something that you're gonna not be able
I'm
to
guilty of that.
handle in your normal life,
Yeah.
because then you're not gonna be consistent,
Yeah.
because it's gonna be too much.
Go sit over there. Oh, sit. We're almost done. You gotta go to bed, you my word.
So I was talking about, yeah, doing something that's manageable,
Yeah.
that you're gonna be, one step at a time, something small, um simple. I mean, I've seen people, like, I'm just gonna use YouTube as an example because this is what we're doing, but I've seen people who talk about certain topics and their video qualities are just like normal. They do it like on their phone. They
Yeah.
really don't. They just do something that is manageable. Like they use their phone to record while they're explaining something. And a lot of people find value in that.
Yeah.
And so don't think that you need to have, the best quality, or like you need to have your home exactly how you want it to, for people to come and do your small group, or for you to come and have your friends over. No, that's a different story. Manageable. Um,
Small group.
I'm not talking about. I mean, yeah, I'm fine with our home. It's not that. But anyway, um, yeah, manage something that you can sustain.
Yeah. I mean, when I first started, I just started with my my phone. My phone. I did go overboard and I started to get into like wanting the perfect setup, but that's just me. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to do it.
But you started it.
I started it. At the end of the day, I did start it because I did think to myself, let me start it and see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly, over the course of 8 months, I progressed and I got better at it and wanted to do more quality, better quality, and I got the light, and I mean this just happens to be office, but setting things up to look the way we want. But like when it comes to editing the podcast, it's upload the videos. I got a little intro that's already made. It doesn't take long because I've gotten better at it. But at the same time, I'm not editing. Don't think that you have to do the same thing that everyone else does when it comes to editing in order for you to have success. It's tempting because you're like, well, I want to have 30,000 views. And what are the people who are doing 30,000 views? Hey, welcome to another episode of make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And let me give you a quick list of all the things that you need to do because we did it too. I did it too.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, for me, it just didn't feel authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I talk about is if God created you in Genesis 2, it talks about the no, in Genesis 1, it talks about God creating everything.
Right.
Day 6, he does his greatest creation, man, out of himself because he's creative. Be creative with the way that God wants you to do your message for him.
Mm-hmm.
However that may look. Could it be with microphones like this? Sure. Literally. Sure. Sure, Brian. Um, but how do you see your creativity flowed? How do you see God's creativity flowing out through you? Do
Mm.
it that way.
That's that's a good point, because I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think it's because God's putting it in my heart. In order for you to know what that creativity is, you need to shut everything off and be in silence so that you can actually listen to your own voice. We're constantly listening to other people's voices.
To the
We're
external world.
listening to podcasts, we're listening to YouTube, we're listening to whatever it is, music. We need to be in a have some time for silence so that you can actually see what that creativity is.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that you feel it, right? You feel it inside of you, and you're like, I have this like great idea and these things, but I'm just struggling to.
And
How
nothing.
am I different? How am I unique? What do I bring that's different? And
Yeah.
then You have to sit in silence so you can actually have a moment to hear your own voice and hear what God has created you to do.
Yeah, and I mean, you know this better than anybody. What was it? Maybe year 4 or 5, 6 of the barbershop. I needed to silence social media because I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the barbershop to kind of give it a new spark, have it continue to grow. But I did not want to do what everyone else was doing because again,
Mhm.
that lacks creativity. And I think it's Theodore Roosevelt that said, "Comparison is the thief of joy."
Mhm.
So I was comparing myself to all the other businesses, which made me think I need to do what they're doing, but it didn't allow me to have the creativity and the originality of what my business needed, what vision that I have, what could I do in my creativity to be able to stand out. And not that I reinvented the wheel,
Right.
but I did something in a barbershop that wasn't really happening at that time, which was hire a receptionist,
Mhm.
which you ended up being the first receptionist. Someone that's forward facing towards the client. It allowed our barbershop to be more professional. It allowed the barbers there to have more items taken off of their responsibility, giving them more flexibility with their schedule and being able to give the client more attention. It changed the pay structure of how the business was operated. But all that happened because I gave social media a break to be able to say, like, I need to silence the exterior noise and I need to think about what do I want for my business? How do I want it to look? And again, I didn't reinvent the wheel, but in the sense of something different for most barbershops, it was it was unique at that time. And that uniqueness didn't come from me copying somebody else. So we need that silencing of exterior noise and the worldly views and how other people do their podcasts and how other people do their YouTube channels. And man, there's a million people doing podcasts. Everybody has a podcast. So what? Nobody has you
Right.
doing a podcast.
Right.
No one has your voice or what God has put inside you. Because if He created you, you are one of one.
Mhm.
Your way of saying something with your way, the way you articulate it, with the way your voice sounds is unique enough for an audience.
Right.
And if God is saying that the world has plenty of harvest but few workers, be a worker that's willing to do the work and just step out in your faith and say yes, and then see what God does with the rest. Have a heart that's forward facing towards God and not towards wanting to please man and wanting to get views and wanting to get attention and wanting to get notoriety.
But also, like, if if you do it and you see, okay, this is not it, it's okay.
Yeah,
You are good. You're still growing. That's still, you can still take something from what you just did here and apply it over here,
yeah,
because that's a step forward. Instead of just sitting back and watching everybody do it, you're taking a step forward, and that step forward is gonna now help you to achieve more, to want to do more. You're like, oh, I did this. I
yeah,
can't believe I did it. Now I can do this.
yeah,
And it just actually, I think it will spark your creativity, because you get like this high of, you know, I don't know, of just like being able to say, I did this. I think I can do this too,
yeah.
or I
Most
can
people are
try.
just afraid to do that first part, to just start. I was gonna say something. What did you say? Say it all again.
What?
Say it all. Say it all again.
I was just talking. I
You said
said,
something at the beginning though. I didn't cut you off, but it made me forget what I was gonna say.
uh, oh, even if you,
Oh, I was gonna say yeah. My even when I started this, I just started. I was like, let me just read a verse and talk about that verse in a
mm-hmm.
quick 60-second video for a short. Most likely, at least with YouTube, you'll find your voice or you find a voice that works. You'll find a niche that works. Go from there.
But be authentic.
Yeah.
'Cause you tried
Yeah,
to do things that were not authentic to you,
for
and
sure
it was like, ooh,
felt forced,
yeah.
all for the likes. I was going into it pretty mindful of where my heart was at, but still I fell into it.
Yeah,
So,
it's easy to do.
uh, again, saying yes to starting is the biggest key, and eventually you'll graduate to be able to find what works. That's with YouTube. With the business, you can't just start a business without having a plan
Yeah,
because there's
yeah.
there's way more.
Because we're
There's
talking about YouTube, but
Yeah, you can start YouTube
like
for
we're
free
talking
today.
about,
I'm not
social
talking.
media in general and that kind of thing. But if you're looking at like a business or
Yeah,
something bigger, obviously you do need a plan because yeah, you're putting money into starting a business.
right. Yeah, that was good.
You mean you could also start a business in the sense of like, you're doing something with what you already have and it's not going to cost you extra.
No, but
And so but you do need a plan for that business to go forward because businesses
I
is
mean, I think that you need to. I had a plan for YouTube even from
yeah,
the beginning. Like,
true,
if you're just driving and you don't know where the heck you're going, don't be surprised when you end up in a place that you weren't expecting.
true.
Have some sort of plan, even for a YouTube channel. And if we're talking in the context of sharing faith, pray about it. Like, God, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to speak on? How do you want it to look? How do you want it? But then work.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just expect it to fall from the ceiling, a desk with two mics, and be like, with a teleprompter that says exactly what to say. Like, do the work, both in the physical of putting things together, but in the spiritual side of being in relationship with God. So when things come up, like when we're talking now, there was no prep for this,
Right.
but the prep comes from the day to day of being in
in
worship, in His
in
Word, at church,
relationship
in relationship with God, at
in
my
relationship in general because
yeah,
it's relationship with people that also connects us to God.
right, and then, like, the men's group, your women's group, all those things allow us to come into a place of creativity at a point of we weren't really expecting to necessarily do this exactly today at this time because we were tired.
Yeah,
I
it's
only got
been
like 3 hours of sleep last night.
yeah.
I'm wide awake now.
Are you?
Oh yeah,
Oh, you did get that nap.
put me on blast. I don't nap. I told Alexa 5 minutes and it was like 15, 20.
That's good though. If I napped, that would be like 2 hours.
But please, people, start. The harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. Be one of the willing that is saying, yes, God. I
Yeah,
don't know what, but yes. I don't know how,
ask
but yes.
ask people for help. Like what?
And not be prideful.
But I'm saying like, okay, the person that you're close to be like, I have these desires to start things, but I'm so stuck. Just talk those things through. Talk about like how you're just be vulnerable about how you're stuck and about how you continuously do the same thing
Yeah.
because talking about it helps.
It's an
I can speak
account.
that for myself. I feel like you've heard me over and over talk about the same thing, and you're like, oh, I know. I've been telling you for years. But I feel like, I think things are starting to move forward.
No, I see it. I see it. I see a change in you.
Yeah.
I see a change, and I'm also I'm also hopeful for what needs to happen. But
Yeah. So am I.
no, I've seen a ton of growth, and I'm
Hmm.
happy to be doing this journey of growth with someone who's wanting to grow. Because one thing that
But
sucks is
in a
wanting somebody
marriage,
who's.
that's helpful. I think
It's hard to
when you start, you're like, oh, my partner doesn't do this, so
mm,
it makes it hard for me to do this. Okay, no,
excuse.
wait a minute. I'm just gonna do it for myself.
Yeah.
And then when your spouse sees that, they get encouraged because they see the change in you and they want to be better too
Hmm.
for. for their spouse. So that it does help to be like in a marriage to do something together, whether it's like growth, not together that has to be the same thing, but just within the same line.
This doesn't have anything to do exactly what you're saying, but even just like if you're not wanting to share your face, there's ways to also create content that doesn't
Yeah,
cause you to put your face in. If you want to be butt naked and share the gospel, but not put your face up on there,
of course you say that.
um, do a podcast that's audio only, right? That you can
Yeah.
be on Spotify, Apple Music. I don't know what else, other platforms. Pandora, if people still listen to Pandora, is that still around? If you want to
Oh
be on
yeah, I forgot about
if you
Pandora.
want to be on AOL music, I don't know. But either way, there's so many different avenues for us to be a light into the world that shares the good news of God. That's ultimately what we're.
Even if it's a devotional, right? You write a daily devotional, something that's
Yeah,
written,
I
you don't
mean, like,
even need your voice.
look at Phil Brown,
Yeah, and
Uncle
it's
Phil.
really beautiful what he
He writes
writes.
almost a daily blog post that he doesn't. He's working on a book now, but I know 100% because I get him. He texts out to people that are even. I think he's talked about in other countries.
Yeah.
And his blog posts have the ability to uplift people who he knows are Christian. It's not necessarily he's talking all to people who are unbelievers, but best believe that the people that he's sharing with are motivated and encouraged by his word because of how he's living out his relationship with God. And
Another
that cost him no money.
But another thing is to like, if you do have that desire, then see if there's a class about creative writing. And therefore, then it could spark
Yeah.
you to like if you don't feel like you have enough to be like what's the word I'm looking for? If you don't feel like you're prepared to write, but you want to write, take a creative class, writing class, and that might help you get you to that point. Or if it's speaking, take a speaking class.
Mhm.
Whatever it is, like don't be afraid to invest in yourself too. Um,
That's the greatest investment.
yeah. So even if you don't end up that route, it will still help you. It still helps you grow.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
ever stop learning. Don't
Don't,
ever stop.
but also don't just think that throwing money at something is going to solve an issue that you're having trouble with. So if you think that better camera, better lighting, better microphones is going to get you an audience, it's only going to amplify how bad you are.
Mm,
But by investing in yourself to be the thing that you're putting money into with classes, with courses, with free or paid content, with mentorship, with accountability, those things allow you as a person to grow to then you give somebody who's a great communicator a Motorola flip phone, they're going to create a better, more viral video than you are, who has a full studio, Oprah setup, just because of one thing, communication. And you invested into yourself to be able to communicate the thing well.
yeah. And that's I think that also comes with asking for help. Like if you can't, you may know somebody that you admire that does something you would want to do. Ask, talk to them. But
Mhm.
that's putting yourself out there. Okay. That's putting yourself out there, right? Because it's hard to ask people, like, oh, hey, I want to talk to you about this because I like what you do. I want to do it. It's hard,
Yeah.
but that's one step forward.
So all we're trying to do is one step forward, one step at a time. All right, that was long.
Yeah.
We weren't gonna say anything tonight. All right, well, episode 17.
I don't know.
Episode 17. We said yes. Will you? All right. See you guys next time.
Yeah.
Have a beautiful time. Love you, big dog.
Oh, me too. What happened?
My knee hit this.
Mm.
It wasn't hurting. I'm gonna use this stuff.
You gonna what? You can